So good morning, everyone. Welcome to Satsang. Let's make some silence first. So good morning once again. Welcome to Satsang. Your present state as the thoughts you tend to find normal, and even those you find abnormal, emotions, sensations, all of this are the strings of the web of your illusion. So, wherever you're coming from, it is from your own illusion. To transcend that is the purpose of all teachings. And I have to say, all teachings, spiritual teachings which are connected to Sanatan Dharma, because there are many adaptations, but that's just because of different motivations. So today we live a collective movement towards what is called a new age, which is supposedly an age where people will live in harmony according to the highest spiritual values. But let us not forget that the highest spiritual values are there to facilitate transcendence, and not but transcendence as into the ultimate reality, not as to a better version of the dream. But of course, there's many interpretations according to different motivations. So same teachings can be interpreted in many ways according to the motivations which are that which propels the seeker. So there was a comment. Someone, you'll know who you are, that expressed, not asked, but expressed the impression that my teachings reject them, feel rejected by my teachings. And to bring the clarification about this, because it is important. And it is important because it is always about directing your attention where it is supposed to be. So teachings, they do not accept nor do they reject anyone. They don't have those qualities. They are not emotional, they are not judgmental. They don't make any evaluations. They set the standards, the highest standards, as opposed from where you are. They show you the direction that you need to move. All these judgments, evaluations, they are a fruit of your illusion. And they emerge for the sole purpose of maintaining the balance of your illusion. And this is why I always say your mind is not your friend. It's not there to help you to understand and move forward. It's not. When the mind is well worked, it is a child that is learning. And that learning comes after giving the steps needed, after going through whatever is there to go through. So the mind can be a good instrument to maintain silent stillness, to drop investments that seem your own and for your best interest, but only after being well worked. And the attitude must be of a child that is learning. Decision, evaluation, it's not something that the mind should engage. Because whenever the mind engages in this, it is to maintain the balance of illusion, because that's its purpose. So teachings do no such thing. But if a big part of you is looking for acceptance, to belong, then these evaluations come. Because the teaching, as it is complete, as it is about you directly, and that's the real teaching. Philosophy is one thing, teaching is direct. So the teaching should bring you a clear vision of where you are, first of all, and should set the standards, the highest standards and the intermediate standards, so that you can move on. This moving on, as you keep focusing on the highest standards as the end, and in the intermediate standards as that which is closer, and you keep on working in that direction, whatever is missing will be developed, whatever is too much will be dropped. There's no such thing as accepting or rejecting. There is the learning process. There's the process that which you undergo as you are exposed to certain teachings, circumstances. But you see, The body-mind complex, it is there to maintain the balance, to maintain illusion. So all these interpretations that arise, they are there exactly for that. Because if they weren't there, and if they weren't successful, distance between where you are and the highest standards would reduce very fast. Without confusions in the mind, without emotional restlessness, it would be very fast. And it is, when you learn to drop all these things. These difficulties, these confusions that arise, for example, these kinds. Oh, I don't feel worthy, I'm not feeling able, or I feel rejected. This is revelation of your wounds. This is what's telling you. So you need to be exposed to that more and more, so that you can have this intensity inside increasing, so that you can practice stillness in the midst of that intensity. This is how these things lose power over you. But if you don't, what happens is every one of these thoughts takes you on a journey, a long journey, from which takes time to come back. And remember, time is the most precious thing. So all the thoughts, emotions, judgments, whatever is arising, is there to keep you in circles. If the teaching comes to you, confirming what you want to be confirmed, some want to be confirmed that they are already enlightened, some want to the confirmation that they are almost enlightened. Many different concernings, many different needs for confirmation depending on the fragility of the character and the different specific pains each one carries. But what would be the purpose of that? Because, well, if you get the confirmation that you're enlightened, will your blindness disappear? Surely not. So it must be a social need, something which is about the way others sees you and not about liberation itself. And it's always the same thing. And the purpose of these things, like I said previously, it's about make you go into the same circles. The beginning, let's call it the beginning. These circles tend to unfold again and again and again and again, full of hope, full of renewed hope, excitement for the better, whatever the circle is. But the more you know, the more you start to see. More these circles will unfold, but the hope which is connected to them reduces a lot. There's even times when this renewal wants to come, and there's nothing from you. No hope, no nothing. And those circles, they don't care. Because as long as you are walking in circles, it's fine. The purpose of it all sums up to these two: distraction, focus. Either you are distracted, wasting your time, or you are focused. It doesn't matter if you're distracted, feeling happy with a purpose, or unhappy without any purpose, or without a purpose and unhappy, or with no purpose and happy. It doesn't matter. What it matters is that you're wasting time, because there's nothing else. The game has nothing to do with anything else. Distraction, focusing, wasting time, or using the best in the best way your time. And like I said previously, the time that you're using into your spiritual practice, into your spiritual work, is time that you're not wasting. And this means that whatever time you're using beyond this is time that you are wasting. And when you think about it, then these, oh, but I have to, oh, but I need to, but we still have to do this, and we still have to do this, is all your fears, all the knots of your illusion revealing themselves in front, in the presence of that overwhelming reality. All these things that come that you think they are universal, that you think that everybody experiences, these are just the knots of your illusion arising. If there was any circumstance apparently impossible to transcend, I'm pretty sure that some saint, some sage, somewhere has done it. And that was a normal human being, whatever that means, that dared. Then, after he finishes that, or especially after he dies, because that's the best part, because even previous to that is difficult, he's called a saint. He's put onto the high. Why? Why don't you aspire to be like that? You put him high, sometimes for reverence and respect, but that's not usually the case. The case is to increase the distance to justify my own reality. These are protection mechanisms. But whatever circumstance was there, apparently seemingly impossible to transcend, someone, somewhere has done it. And this is done so that others can see that it is possible. And it's fantastic that people tend to look at those who are at the highest top of the worldly structures of power, of money, and they strive to get there. Even if it is beyond, far from their reach, they continue to walk into that direction. Only in certain things the principle doesn't seem to apply. It does apply. But for it to apply, you need to make your quest for liberation sacred. untainted by your worldly desires. Your worldly desires have to become the wood with which you do the fire to make that part that wants liberation whole, the only existent part. And as you do this, then that principle applies. Because if it was possible for one individual, it is possible to anyone. And if you compare individuals, you will see differences, yes, surely. But the thing is, every seeker of truth deals its own illusion, represents an overwhelming force in which no matter how strong he is, he will not be able to succeed on its own. And there's a purpose for this, because of that little word and the beauty and the magic that comes with it, which is surrender. And that is the perfume of all of this. So all your power, all your strength has to be exerted, yes. There has to be room for blessing, because that is the communion with the divine. And then help comes. And whatever seems overwhelming becomes possible through grace. And everybody has to go through it. So if you look at the gorilla, maybe 50 kilos, it's not much for him. But if you look at an ant, 50 kilos, impossible. The ant is very strong, but in its own reality, that is too much. But if you give just 1 kilo to the ant, it will still be too much. And nothing for the gorilla. But in their worlds, probably those 50 kilos are nothing. And whatever weight, I think the 3 times the weight of its own weight the ant can lift, maybe that's not too much also. In their own realities, in their own circumstances, the meaning of the challenge may be different observed by others, but to themselves, it is always proportional. And let's look at 2 gorillas lifting 100 kilos. Why are we doing this math? Okay, let's continue. For one, it may be very difficult, and for the other, it may not. But if we reach the limits of each other, the effort will be the same. There's no comparison. And for every seeker of truth, transcending his own delusion will seem many times impossible. Will be seen like that because the seeing comes from the body-mind complex, and that seeing it's not a fruit of reasoning, it's a fruit of need to maintain that same illusion. It's just expected to be like that. So teachings set the standards. They are there to teach. They are not there judging, evaluating. They are giving you a hand, reaching, grabbing that hand. That is your part. And how well you can move. How much work have you done observing your own mechanisms so that you can walk into direction that seems unnatural? What seems natural is the mechanisms of your own illusion. So those who are trusting their minds, emotions, and even feelings, they are trusting the labyrinth to exit the labyrinth without taking into account that the labyrinth is there to keep you inside, to keep you moving but lost, renewing hope at each passage, at each new circuit. And it's not a steady, unmovable labyrinth. It is one that it is transforming again and again. So you think you're getting a new path, but it's not new. And it's there just to keep you walking undistracted. And the higher the teaching is, the more difficult it appears to be to follow it. But depending on your level of faith, the teaching says it is possible. That's the only thing needed. It is possible. That's what the teaching is saying. And if you apply long enough, you will see it. You will rise up and you will see it. But what keeps you from rising? The storms that surface in the mind, the storms that surface emotionally. And those storms are there to protect you. The illusion, of course, the illusion part of you, the illusory character, keeping you conditioned to the, oh, but you're a needy individual, you need this and that, and you need to experience this to live this, it's too soon, it's too late, you're too good, you're too bad. It doesn't matter. It will sing the music, the needed music to keep the movement, the empty movement, and keep the time being wasted. Either through an evil design or just plain ignorance. It doesn't matter. As long as you're in circles, time is passing. That is the name of the game. The more you become aware of this, the less you will use your time for anything apart freedom. How to remove attachments? How do they get installed? The illusion of happiness, of circumstantial happiness, the basis of every comings and goings and comings and goings and comings and goings and goings and comings around. One of the cornerstones of illusion, circumstantial happiness. That means when you achieve certain circumstances, doesn't matter having certain things, being certain places, or all of them together, you'll be happy. But all these beliefs, all these things, they are there to entertain you with the idea of happiness. Future happiness, of course. And they are keeping the balance of present suffering, future suffering. Because that is how the bitter seems sweet. Because there's something even more bitter than the bitter. That is suffering, emptiness, void. Not devoid, but void. And so the less bitter seems sweet. And that is what is called pleasure, circumstantial happiness. And of course, moving even beyond this, there is dependency on these ideas, like life will be lost if I don't reach those circumstances, if I don't achieve circumstantial happiness, even if you know that it's not in that direction. You're a hostage. Those thoughts, they come ingrained. They belong to the body character, to the body mind, to the character. And they haunt you like the need to survive. So as a seeker of truth, you must look at these beliefs as they are, because this question arises because it is painful to let go of attachments and sometimes not even understood. But before the great liberation, you need to conquer the small freedoms, which are big from where you stand. And the freedom from these mental shackles, this freedom is very important. And it is always the same principle: affirming stillness, abiding in stillness, not investing, letting go, not going after, not grabbing, remaining time enough to see that you're not turning into a pumpkin. Nothing so disastrous is happening. Of course, it's painful, it hurts, this and that, but it's not as much as the mind makes. By remaining long enough. And of course, when greed is in the mind, it's like, well, I let go of one, but there must be something in return. And it doesn't work like that. It works in stages. As you're trying to transcend your delusion, you need to observe what drags you back again and again, drags you back. So, okay, even so I seem to appear to be moving, I get dragged again. So I need to see what is dragging me again. So these are the ropes I need to resist, these pullings. And sometimes it's not about where am I going apart from this. No, it's just resisting this, conquering my freedom from this first. Being present long enough. What does this mean, long enough? Because as you are resisting, suffering will increase, either proportional suffering or unproportional suffering, depending on your concepts. And this unproportional suffering is a mechanism to kick you back into the play of distraction. It's like delusion is like saying, oh, you think you're tough, you think you can handle it, so let's increase tenfold and let's see what happens. But that is good. It offers opportunity because when it happens, you get a glimpse of something that you didn't previously. And you'll be able to see more and more how a game it is. And you start to look at things in a different way. But first, resist, hold your grounds, no matter what. And eventually, attachments will lose their power over you. Because the real strength, it's not about developing the power to overcome anything. It is about self-sufficiency, not needing anything. Finding this self-sufficiency, because that is the basis for stillness. And that is the real power. So resisting the currents that drag you constantly, knowing your fears, knowing what they are, knowing what your fragilities are, and working them one by one. What does this mean? Exposing yourself to them until freedom from them is achieved. Because if you continue to hide, to defend, you're maintaining fragility. So there's a path for anyone and everyone. Of course, to go through it, you have to leave certain things behind. It is part. And teachings are teaching to everyone. They are not accepting, nor are they rejecting. This is your delusion screaming to justify, just to keep you there, investing and distracted, investing and distracted. Which is better, to control or to express anger? Well, karma is one important aspect. Why is it important? Because when you are dealing with external circumstances, it is much more easy to be distracted, to confuse yourself Many things arise about self-value, being right, to win, that is, to get even, to a lot of things. It's easier to be confused with others. And whatever interaction you're creating, whatever burst of anger it is coming, for example, there will be fruits of that interaction, and these fruits will have to be received and lived. That means you're guaranteeing more experience, more dual experience. That means longer periods with your eyes closed. So first of all, these outbursts, the expression of anger, no. This has to be cut first. You cannot do it all at the same time. But as anger is there, you can be sure that it's not about anger, it's about sadness. Anger is a defense mechanism that the character uses because it's much more easy to use. It's much more easy to say, I'm angry, I'm going to get even, than I'm sad, fragile. Character doesn't like this fragility. But behind every anger, there is sadness. This is a mechanism that protects you from living this sadness directly. And whatever sadness is there, it is attracting those situations of anger and that ultimately feed this stock of sadness to keep the circus going. Those who work intensely in these matters, they can see that clearly. Even if they have gone a long while, that when anger comes, everything changes. It's like you're possessed with something. So that means there was a previous state, a more peaceful state, and then there's something uncontrollable that rises like a wave that takes you. And this is not you, not yours. It has come. So this is one vision that it's very good to entertain. And the other one is knowing that this is a control, a defense mechanism for sadness. And as that sadness is there, it will continue to generate these experience. Because illusion doesn't sustain itself, it needs constant food. So when anger is there, if you try to see what is the sadness which is protecting, you can access it and it can overflow the sadness and will empty the stock of sadness. Eventually, this anger disappears and thus just this sadness rises and rises more and more to clean up. So behind every anger, there is a sadness about yourself, fragility which is there, that needs to be accessed. So first, the outbursts. You need to stop this because this is generating future experience. And it doesn't matter if it is a good experience or a bad experience, it's experience. That means dual experience. So when you look at these mechanisms, it seems like a snowball that goes down the mountain. As it rolls, it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Huge, that destroys everything. But when you find the right alignment in your spiritual work, it works in the same way also. like the same snowball. It grows bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Without knowing this, it seems that it is all impossible, but it isn't. You just need to find your track and keep in it. How to find that we are progressing in the spiritual path? Well, that question in itself, it's like asking, am I in the sauna or am I not in the sauna? Well, if it is very hot, sweating, surely you must be in some kind of a sauna. If it isn't, well, these questions may appear, may rise from the absence of these circumstances. So progressing in the spiritual path has a specific meaning. When it is mental concepts, mental learning, it is not much. The real spiritual path starts when spiritual practices, intense ones, begin. And as these intense spiritual practices, meditation begins, a lot of inner processes starts to unfold, coming in your direction so that you can deal with it and grow with it and move beyond to the next challenge and the next challenge. And you get constantly exposed to different difficulties that you have. It seems that it's on stopping, on ending. This is the right velocity. It means things are happening. And as intensity is present and as these experiences are there, you are progressing. It's not a straight line. Sometimes one aspect is worked, then another one from the other side. But there's an intelligence as you keep the flame and trying to intensify the flame. And that means by embracing, surrendering yourself to the spiritual practices, to your meditation, increasing it more and more, making it 24/7, eyes open, dealing with whatever is coming to me, eyes closed, doing the same, and holding on to the technique, working with it. And when people are doing this, they expect the fruits of it to come. Forget about the fruits. You don't need the fruits for nothing. You just need to continue working with your difficulties, with your fragilities. That is the best. Because the part of you that wants the goodies is the part which is connected to the difficulties. But when you solve all difficulties, there's just goodies everywhere. So the intensity marks, because when you're in the intensity, it's pretty clear that either you are being able to cope with it or that you're not being able to cope with it. If you're being able to cope with it, another one will come, and another one will come, and another one will come. If you're not being able to cope with it, you know what are the difficulties, what is preventing it, and you can focus on these aspects. So the same circumstances will come again to you, again, maybe different, another side, but the same ones, the same thing. And eventually you can see a logic unfolding because it has. And whenever it is happening, whenever you're in the midst of this experience, it is happening and you're progressing on your spiritual path because you're getting a feedback from the other side. And if there's no point, there won't be any feedback. So for this life to emerge, certain steps have to be given. And then it starts. And eventually, here and there, you will see that reactions to certain circumstances, to certain things change. Sometimes, if the intensity is very high, if you can keep it very high, you will not even recognize yourself from behaviors, for example. But that's meaningless. Just need to just keep on focusing on the intensity, on making it real. Because without intensity, all these questions can arise. In intensity, they cannot arise. And either you know that you are being able to cope and go through, or you know what the difficulties are, and you are working those difficulties, and you are still going through. Because that's what you assess when difficulties are coming. You are able to go through them with difficulty, whatever, but you're going to. And those that you are not, and you're seeing, okay, I'm not being able to move because of this, and that. So I know what I need to do next. And it's like this. When there's no intensity, challenges just resume to their normal state of normal life. Time gets consumed much faster for very less. Whether it's good to raise Kundalini energy by watching YouTube videos. I wonder how did those sages did without YouTube? Without having a physical guru. There is no physical guru. Physical bodies can be instruments in the hands of a guru. In the hands of a guru. But there is no physical gurus. But YouTube, what is discernment of YouTube on all these things? It is limited and works against you. By intensifying your meditation, taking to your limits, then the process becomes alive. And guidance will come if there's anyone there to receive guidance, of course. And then you receive what's best for you. With a body, without a body, doesn't matter. But it's not something that you decide. You see, blessings come in the way that they are needed, and they ought to be thanked and not chosen. And much more could be said about it, but let's keep it this way. Do you have any more questions? Oh, there's something here also. Self-sufficiency, is it the same as contentment? Not really. Established principally in my faith in God. Well, it can. It's different, but it's same. It's like looking at self-realization as realizing the self and self-realization as God realization. But yes, they are more or less the same principle. Because in self-sufficiency, I know I have all I need. So I don't need to go after anything else. I can remain in stillness. And by doing that, any part of me which is deluded still will have the opportunity to purge that delusion. Like a dependency over some narcotic substance. If you abstain from it, your body will transcend that dependency. So self-sufficiency connected only to contentment, that's no, but when you say contentment, let me read it again. Established principally my faith in God. Yes, because you take it to yourself that whatever is really needed to you, God will bring it to you. If God is not bringing it to you, you don't need it. You just think you need it. So eventually it comes to the same principle. Yes. Because the real power comes from God, not from the character. And the real power is the source. And I am not that which uses power. I am power. How, wait. How do you deal with a partner who is depressed and won't seek help? How do you deal with that? Why do you deal with that? Everybody has their own path. Everybody has what it needs. And depression is something which is becoming quite common, normal, because life is not holding any more mysteries. And the uselessness of worldly goals, of a worldly life, even if it seems spiritual. But if it just seems spiritual, it will bring the same fruits, and that is emptiness. Emptiness. But depression has a good part. At the bottom of the well, there is life, there is alchemy, transformation, there is growth. But everybody fears the bottom of the well. But it's not as bad as it seems. But eventually, those who really want help, they will seek that help. And for a seeker of truth, the vision is different. The vision is different. The only thing a seeker of truth can give to the world, and that's the highest, is its own example. When he is doing it, not to give an example, but for his own sake. It seems contradictory, but it isn't. Do you believe that visiting spiritual sites gives power? Spiritual sites are Shakti abundant sites. And yes, of course, it is very good. Not just because of the energy which is there, but even of sanskars, of sages and saints that made that place spiritual, sacred, or deities even. And their energy is there. And as you remain in that energy, yes, it is very good for you. If you're using it for the purpose of liberation. Did I miss anything? Maybe not. Anything else? There's no time to waste. No time to waste. Life is indeed precious. And all the time you're not using towards your liberation, it is time being wasted. And if you're struggling in your quest for liberation and you're maintaining certain behaviors, protected ones, they are working against your efforts towards liberation. So time being wasted. Finding these things, correcting these things, it is of utmost important. Share your spiritual experience. I don't usually talk about those things because I would have to assume there was an individual with an experience, and that would be bringing more confusion to all of you than clarification. Teachings speak from themselves. You're welcome. Okay, so if there's no more questions, if there is, you can send still in these last seconds. You're welcome. Just make the best use of it. That's all that is important. So next satsang will be Wednesday. Wednesday, 9:30 in the morning, Brazilian time, UTC -3. Till then, make the best use. Make it real. Make it real. Okay, pode.